Signore e signori, siamo lieti di dare il benvenuto al nuovo allenatore.
Hey all my people, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing a what if type of scenario. What if the likes of Thiago Motta goes on and joins Juventus in the summer? Of course, there have been links with Allegri potentially leaving Juventus, and they will be looking for a manager, and quite a few people have suggested, well, potentially Thiago Motta from Bologna to Juventus. Of course, Bologna play some of the most attractive brand of football in Serie A at the moment. They play this very free roaming, free possession, very good possession based type of system. So it could work out with a Juventus side. And to be honest, in this video, we're going to be discussing how we can adapt that Bologna side and those set of tactics into this current Juventus side and how they might be able to get on. Of course, with that, I've gone ahead and also created a bit more of an offensive type structure that they do look to try and revert into. And that is going to be a 1-3-1-4-1 system. I know it's a whole mouthful, but more so it creates like the sweeper centre back type vibe with obviously a back three essentially just in front of that, and it works out very well. It does allow you to dominate the opposition, and again have that nice rotational type style of play. So that is more or less the offensive structure that they do look to work into when in possession of the ball, of course. Anyways, before we get any further on into this video, if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, subscribing if you are new to the channel, and of course hitting the bell notifications, that would be absolutely fantastic. As well as, whilst you're doing all of that, leaving a comment. How do you like the system? How do you think it could adapt even more? How do you think that, some of these players will fit? And also, whilst, talking about all of this, I will be going over a few transfers that you could look to make that would obviously better a Thiago Motta system with this current Juventus side. Obviously, there are going to be one or two players that don't necessarily fit the system at hand. So we will be discussing transfers at the end of this video. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, let's hop on straight into the goddamn video. Okay, so taking a look at the base formation, it is going to be a 4-2-3-1 wide. I've made no changes to it whatsoever, so therefore it will be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two DMs, one attacking midfielder, two wider midfielders, and then, of course, one striker. So progressing on to the tactics. Now, the tactical vision that I've set is wing play. It allows you to start quite a few attacks down either flank and allowing you to try and attack from those wider areas of the field, trying to, create overloads and whatnot in those wider sections. Of course, with the, crazy amount of rotations that you do tend to see, they do want to try and stretch the opposition as much as possible, creating those little pockets of space, allowing for your strikers and your attacking midfielders and whatnot to be able to pop up in those little half spaces, and of course trying to exploit the opposition with it. So moving on to the defense and the defensive style, I have selected pressing after possession loss. They do tend to implement a very good counter-pressing system that works out very well in Bologna's favor, as well as what could potentially work out in the likes of Juventus's favor. Again, I think the most realistic option would be the constant pressure, but again, it doesn't really work out that well for your team, especially if you are using these tactics in a career mode. For a one-off game, it could work out very well, but in the latter stages of that game, your players would absolutely be on their last legs. So I think pressing after possession loss suits this side. It would suit, your game plan and how you would look to try and set out, as well as we have altered a few player instructions to help with that more aggressive, assertive type of counter-pressing measures that Bologna try and implement, as well as what Thiago Motta demands from his players. So anyways, progressing on to the team width, I've set it to 45, very similar to what I did with the Bologna instructions and tactics for that video. Yes, they have a very balanced depth. They do like to go man v man, sometimes even switch to like a zonal type system, and I think 45 can represent both of those aspects very effectively in FT24. Of course, with the depth that is set to 80, you want to try and obviously play a good possession-based brand of football, and that includes your backline pushing nice and high up the field, being very involved in the builder play, allowing them to potentially show for a potential passing option, allowing them to help very nicely with the builder play from back to front. And as well as that, of course, it does allow you to try and pin the opposition in their own half at times. As for the offense and the builder play, I have selected balanced. Now, it does change and alter depending on what game plan you are going with. For the more attacking game plan, obviously it is different. But for the more balanced approach, I've gone with a balanced, style of play. You can allow for them to, implement that long ball approach in behind, of course, or maybe even build up nice and slowly from back to front, looking for, the creation of those triangle passages of play, or even the diamond passages of play, waiting and looking for the support from your teammates to try and help build out from back to front. As for the chance creation, it is set to possession. Of course, Thiago Motta is very big on the possession-based brand of football, the freedom of having the possession-based brand of football as well. Always looking for support, whether it's, your centre-backs, getting higher up the field, looking to try and support the midfielders, or even your midfielders looking to try and get in and around the attacking areas of the field, looking to try and support your front three at times. So, of course, with this possession-based brand of football implemented, you do need to look after the ball as best as possible. Otherwise, you could potentially be exploited and exposed, and that could lead you to pulling out your hair. So anyways, moving on to the width, it is set to 80, looking for, like I said earlier, trying to create that, those spaces in between the lines, the little half spaces for your forwards as well as your midfielders to try and work into, looking to try and exploit the opposition, but at the same time also looking to try and start your attacks from those wider areas, looking to try and channel them in, whether it's a cross or a free kick, or just driving in to the box and trying to, create a goal scoring opportunity for the player driving into the box, or potentially one of the attackers in and around that area. As for the players in the box, I have set it to a balanced 5. Now, what I did note was, Bologna, they don't always overcommit a whole lot of players into the box. I've done a little bit more research, and they don't average, the most amount of touches in the box. I think they're like 10th or something on average in Serie A. So they don't always... They maintain the ball quite a bit. I think they're in the top 3 for possession, average possession as well. But they don't always use it to the best advantage possible, where it's working the ball into that attacking third. They'll look to obviously retain possession, reset at certain times, and not overcommit to too many players. And this does help with the aggressive counter-pressing system, because you will have players in and around the box. So if a cross or a cutback is intercepted and the opposition are looking to try and move the ball into their attacking third, your defensive third, you do have players in and around there to try and, like I say, implement that counter-pressing type system. But more so, with this Juventus side, I think it would be more or less the same. You would have the likes of Vlahovic and maybe Chiesa, Moretti, or whoever really in and around that attacking area, waiting for the potential killer ball. But again, not overcommitting too many players. As for the likes of the corners and the free kicks, as for always, it is set to 4. So progressing on to the instructions, starting off at the back with Szczesny, he'll be set to be a sweeper keeper and of course come for crosses. More naturally, he is very good at claiming those aerial balls when they are fired into the box. But at the same time, with the Thiago Motta system, you would expect your goalkeeper to be very good in the build-up play, very, much a part of the build-up play, obviously looking to build out from back to front very effectively. And more so, obviously, it's very hard to try and replicate this role, but one of the centre-backs do push up into the midfield, and the goalkeeper tends to almost take up that extra centre-back type role. So a sweeper keeper is going to be absolutely pivotal, and of course, you are playing a hard line, so you would require your goalkeeper to be off of his line, looking to claim those aerial balls or those balls fired in behind your back line, looking to try and win them back and circulate them obviously back into possession. Anyways, as for your 2 centre-backs, now I've gone with Giallo as the left-sided centre-back for more so the possession-based brand of football that you are looking to implement. I think he's very good at playing this style of football, also pushing him up into the midfield every now and then. So he's set to his base set of instructions, whereas the likes of Bremer, one tweak and alteration would be the conservative interceptions. He's going to be a bit more of the sweeper. He's got a bit more pace to his game, and he can look to catch up the opposition if they are looking to counterattack and they have gotten in behind. You can more or less try and rely on Bremer to do so very effectively. So essentially, he is going to be the sweeper centre-back of the 2. As for the likes of Danilo and Cambiasso, trying to be those attacking fullbacks that can also look to invert into the midfield, as well as also hug the touchlines and overlap every now and then, which we do tend to see very effectively with a Bologna type system. But more so, I've selected the run type to be mixed because obviously you're looking for that very free-flowing, fluid football all over the field, and you want your fullbacks to also be very much a part of that. So you want them to sometimes, be playing as a DM or in that position specifically, or sometimes you want them on the wing. So more or less the mixed attack allows him to have these dynamic type roles very effectively, but most importantly, you are trying to play a possession-based attacking brand of football, so you want them to be able to join the attack as much as possible. Of course, for the defensive positioning, I have set them to step up. Now, this allows for that good aggressive counter-pressing type system that we are looking to implement very effectively, and that does get them nice and close and also nice and high up the field, more or less attached to the opposition forwards. As you'll see at Alex Cambiasso, he's got the same role and instructions as well. Okay, so into your midfield now, we've got a double pivot of Rabiot and Locatelli. So for Rabiot, he is going to be a bit more of the attacking DM of the 2. So he'll be told to tight mark, of course, on the defensive end of things. He's going to try and get nice and close to the opposition players in and around the box. More so on the edge of the area, trying to prevent shots or playmaking opportunities for them. and basically just not giving them that much time and space on the ball. Of course, the attacking support, you want him to get forward, and essentially when he does, break into that space, it opens up quite a bit of space for the likes of Giallo to more or less move into as that, extra midfielder slash hybrid type centre back. So again, it does play into the hands of what you're trying to do on the offensive side of things. The interceptions will be set to normal, and then of course the positioning freedom will be set to being the deep lying playmaker. Both Locatelli and Rabiot will look to show for the ball with those goalkeeper restarts, provide passing options, and have that nice, fluid type movement between the lines, allowing them to pop up a little bit deeper at times. Again, looking to show for the ball and get on it as much as possible. And then for the defensive positioning, I've set both Locatelli and Rabiot yet again to cover the center. You can also look to try and manually drag them out of their more central areas if required, if need be. But more so because your two centre backs are, spread, you want to try and have a bit more of a central protection. And I think Rabiot and Locatelli with cover the center does this very effectively. As you'll see here for the likes of Locatelli, a very similar role, but again, a bit more of a defensive awareness to his game plan. So for the defensive behavior, slightly different, set to a more balanced approach, looking to try and keep the shape and the structure of the side. And of course, he is going to be the more natural DM of the two, so you want him to try and, remain central, not breaking the formation or the structure of the formation that much. The attacking support is set to stay back while attacking. You don't want him breaking forward too much, although I will say, if we're relating this back to the Bologna system, the likes of Froila, which I'm modeling Locatelli off of, he does tend to get forward every now and then. So you can play those 1-2 passes in and around the midfield and have Locatelli making that advance run, creating an overload higher up the field. You can definitely do so, and it is an option for you potentially. The interceptions will be set to conservative, looking again to not break the shape or the structure too much, trying to be the calmer head of the two in the midfield, and again, not looking to, be exploited and step out of position too much. As for the positioning freedom, just like with Rabiot, deep lying playmaker, and of course, cover the center. Anyway, so progressing on to the attacking midfielder now, I've selected Moretti in this role. I think he can fulfill it very effectively. So for the first two sets of instructions, the defensive support as well as the support on crosses, I've selected both of them to be set to balanced, allowing him for the opportunity to sometimes drop a bit deeper, help support the offense, or potentially stay forward, as well as the ability to stay on the edge of the box, or potentially in certain moments, if the opportunity is there, he can also look to break into the box. Most importantly though, with this attacking midfielder role, you want to try and create that fluid movement, and I did select free roam, but I think it kind of breaks the structure up front quite a bit because you don't always have that key figure there. And what I did note was with the likes of Lewis Ferguson for the Bologna side, he does tend to drift into those wider channels quite a bit more, and free roam again can't really do that on the regular. So I've selected him to drift wide, allowing him to link up very effectively with the wider midfielders, whether it's Chiesa or Kostic or whoever you have in those wider channels. And also look to try and, pull players out of position for the likes of Rabiot to try and exploit in those more central areas as well. For the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, and this does help with the very aggressive counter press that you are looking to implement when you do, lose possession of the ball. So onto your left and your right midfielder. Both will have the same roles and instructions as well. So coming back on defense is going to be absolutely essential, looking to try and help and support the fullbacks in those wider channels as much as possible. The free roaming role I've put on for them so that they can try and operate in those little, half spaces or those left or right channels. Trying to exploit and create space in either the left or the right hand side. But more so, it does create that fluid type motion, whether they can look to overload on the one side, they can look to manually track from the left to the right or the right to the left, and again, create that extra man or that extra passing option in and around the ball area. The support, the support runs I've set to balance, allowing them to sometimes, yes, use their pace to penetrate the back line in behind, but you are looking to play a possession-based brand of football, so you don't always require them to do this. Sometimes you would require them to come a bit shorter or be a target man and link up very effectively with the players in and around the wider areas of the field. As for the likes of the interceptions, I've set it to normal, and then of course the support on crosses is set to get into the box. Now, of course, with it being set to 5, you only really commit 2 to 3 players in and around there, so of course it can be your front 3. But again, the likes of Moretti can also do a very effective job, and that will cause either Chiesa or Kostic to stay a bit wider and look to be a bit more of a creative, wider player. As for the likes of Kostic, again, the same role and instructions as well. So yeah, no major changes for your wider midfielders. Okay, so onto your striker now. So if we had to compare the Bologna side and the Juventus side, Vlahovic and Xerxes are two very different players. Both, okay, the qualities that they have are very good, but they're also very different. The only real like factors are Xerxes is 6'4" and Vlahovic is like 6'2", 6'3", somewhere around there as well. But Xerxes has incredible, talent when it comes to dropping deep, getting on the ball, allowing him to almost be a false nine at times, almost a number 10 in a more advanced area, you could say, linking up very effectively with the midfield, allowing him to pull players out of position, drop into the little half spaces, link up very nicely in those little tight spaces as well. And that is something I don't see Vlahovic doing. So I've kind of molded Vlahovic into this role, although I could potentially see, if the likes of Motta does go into Juventus, I could maybe see them selling him for X amount of money and looking to reinvest it back into the squad. But in order to get Vlahovic into this team, he'd be set to stay central, of course, not really having that much movement up front, which kind of does break and go against what Motta wants. Of course, he wants consistent movement, consistent freedom, and essentially you'll have Vlahovic staying high up front. But what we can do is try and, fix that, and essentially is have him set to mixed attack. Now, this can allow him to sometimes drop off and be a false nine, other times be a bit more of a target man, win the aerial duels, link up very effectively with the consistent fluid movements in behind him, of course, as well as also using his pace to Juventus's, I don't know, but to the side's advantage, right? Trying to break him behind, have those long balls knocked into him, of course. So I think in that aspect he could work out very well. But in terms of the fluidity, the ball movements, the off-the-ball movements, I think he could kind of stagnate the side ever so slightly. Although it could work, we don't know just yet. The interceptions would be set to normal, and then finally come back on defense. Now, you can have it set to a more balanced approach, but I've set it to come back on defense, and this can allow for, again, the striker to drop off of the back line, open up a bit more space for the forwards or the midfielders just in behind him, of course, and also allow him to get on the ball a bit more every now and then. So if you do, rotate the side, and I think a more suited striker to the side would be the likes of Alcaraz, of course, brought in from Southampton, can play in the midfield area or as an attacking midfielder or even up front as a striker. I personally think that he is the best possible option for a Thiago Motta side if you had to, not make any transfers or bring in any other players. So for the role, the effective Joshua Xerxes type role, the support runs would be set to balance, allowing him every now and then to drift into those wider channels, pull players out of position, or sometimes stay a bit more central. Of course, the attacking runs would be set to false nine, allowing the striker to, of course, drop a bit deeper, opening up space for the attacking midfielder to work into, almost, interchanging positions at times, and allowing him to more or less get on the ball and drive at the opposition, which is another underrated element of Joshua Xerxes' game. The interceptions would be set to aggressive, and then, of course, there's no major changes to the defensive support. You would still want and require him to drop back on defense. Okay, so progressing on to the more offensive type structure, the 1-3-1-4-1 system. God, that is a mouthful. But essentially, it is something that the likes of Bologna tend to, more or less morph into when in possession, creating overloads all over the field. And we'll see with the player instructions, there's a lot of more ball movement. There's a lot of, consistent running off of the ball, looking for the spaces, looking to try and exploit them as much as possible. So, taking a look at the formation, essentially it will be a 3-1-1-2-3 system. Now, I did more or less just select their default structure, and then I changed and pushed players into their various different positions. So, yeah, you'll have to look at it like that and essentially try and model the current system off of that. You'll find it very hard to try and, fit a DM and a central midfielder into the side. So that's essentially why I've had to shift the centre back out of that more central area to the slightly wider position. So, yeah, anyways. So, essentially, it will be one goalkeeper, one centre back, one DM, two wing backs, a central midfielder, two attacking midfielders, two wingers, and then, of course, one striker. Again, that is such a mouthful. Oh my goodness me. So, taking a look at the tactics, there are a few tweaks and changes to it, of course. One thing that hasn't changed is the wing play, as well as the defensive style, still being set to pressing after possession loss. The team width, however, does change. It's set to 60, a bit more of a widespread team looking to try and potentially have that bit more of that zonal type role, with the touch of still having that man-v-man type situation. Of course, the depth is now pushed up to 90. You are looking to very much compact and create that wave after wave of attacking pressure that you'll look to obviously try and create and implement. So yes, with it set to 90, it does help on the offensive side of things. And speaking of which, the offense, I've set it to slow build-up, so not balanced this time, slow build-up, looking to retain possession, wait for the spaces to arrive, wait for the players to move into the correct spaces for you to attack, and obviously looking to exploit them. You will still be set to being the possession-based team. Again, looking for the little support plays every now and then, and with the slow build-up being set on, it does help that quite significantly, I will say. The width is still set to 80, the players in the box is still set to 5. If you want, you can also pump it up to around, 7, but it doesn't really implement that realistic Motta type style and system of football. And then, of course, the corners and the free kicks are still set to 4. Okay, now things get a bit interesting. So we'll start off at the back with Szczesny, still going to be told to come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper. It is absolutely vital that he will be a sweeper keeper with this system in play, or this game plan intact, I should say. You want him to be able to move into the space. You want him to be able to attack those balls over the top, looking to try and win them back and circulate them back into your team's possession, of course. And you are playing an incredibly high line set to 90. So, yeah, there's all these factors that you need your goalkeeper to be on his game for. As for the likes of Bremer, again, no real changes to his instructions, set to conservative. Of course, like I said earlier, he's going to be the more sweeper, or he's going to be the sweeper centre-back of the essential back two. And then we move on into our midfield / wing-back area. And we've started with the likes of Giallo. So again, I don't think Gatti really fits this role. I think Gatti is more of a Bremer type replacement. Whereas Giallo, I think he's very good on the ball, very good at playing out from the back, and can also fit into that midfield type model and role, essentially. So in order to replicate his role, he'll be set to cut passing lanes, a bit more of a zonal approach to how he's looking to defend. The attacking support will be set to drop between the defenders, looking to show for the ball, drop a bit deeper, have a nice deep starting position, also not looking to be exploited as much when in possession of the ball, but at the same time can be very effective when moving up into the more attacking areas of the field. The interceptions will be set to normal. You don't want him to be set, or even it could be set to conservative. I've set it to normal. You don't want him to be set to aggressive though, because he can leave quite a few holes in your back line, and again, it is already very limited, so you don't want to create more problems and issues for yourself. And then finally, looking at the positioning freedom, of course, both Locatelli as well as Giallo will be the deep line playmakers, looking to show for the ball with the goalkeeper restarts, and obviously looking to progress it on into the midfield or even further on into the forward line. Of course, the defensive positioning will be set to cover the center. You don't want him drifting all over the place on the defensive end of things. Again, you are very limited at the back, so you don't want to create too many issues for yourself. So, onto the likes of Cambiaso as well as Danilo. A very similar set of instructions compared to the more balanced approach, but because their more natural positions are a bit more narrow and higher up, they will be inverted quite a bit, helping support the essential 2 DMs in your side. So join the attack, mixed run type, and of course step up. That is going to be their roles and instructions for both. As you can see for the likes of Danilo, same role, same instructions. Okay, so moving on to the central midfielder, who's supposed to be a DM, but we can't get, both of them in those more deeper positions. But for the likes of Locatelli, more or less trying to alter his more natural attacking position into a DM itself. So for the attacking support, he will be told to drop between the defenders, just like with Giallo, creating that nice, formidable double pivot, you could say. The support on crosses will be set to stay on the edge of the box, not looking to break into that attacking area nearly half as much as what he would normally look to do. The interceptions is set to normal, and then finally cover the center and free roam, allowing for that nice rotational type play that we have been talking about quite a lot in this video. Anyways, moving on to the likes of Moretti and Rabiot. Again, they have very similar roles. They do have very similar roles with quite a lot of rotation involved in it. So the defensive support is set to basic, allowing them to, yes, drop back and help support at times, or potentially hang up the field and create overloads in those more attacking areas. The support is set to stay on the edge of the box for the cross, but every now and then they will look to obviously break into that attacking area. The positioning freedom is absolutely vital to how the system is set to work out. It is set to free roam. You want them to be able to rotate very effectively with Locatelli from the wider areas, more centrally at times. So again, there's going to be a lot of movement in and around the attacking third of the field, and that does help. It pulls players out of position, it opens up spaces for runners in behind, and it does a whole lot of good, things for your side. Of course, the interceptions will be set to aggressive, and again, that does help with the very aggressive counter press that you are looking to implement, especially with very light at the back defense. You want to try and, use your overloaded midfield to your advantage. As you'll see here for the likes of Rabiot, again, same role, same instructions, same everything. So onto your left and your right wing. not midfielders, but wingers. Both are set to come back on defense, obviously looking to try and help out the more inverted fullbacks in this role. The width will be set to balanced, or the chance creation will be set to balanced. Sometimes allowing them to cut inside and pop off shots or create. Other times hugging the touchlines and looking to try and cross the ball into the more danger areas of the field. The support runs is also set to balance, allowing them to, more or less incorporate the getting behind approach to the target player as well as the come short. You want to try and have all these different elements from those wider positions of the field. And then finally, interceptions will be set to aggressive, and the support on crosses will be set to balanced. Onto the likes of Vlahovic, there's no major changes to his role or instructions, apart from the fact that the defensive support is set to basic. So with the more balanced approach, you do want him dropping off the back line, whereas with this, because you're so far high field, you want him to try and be as much involved in the attacking outlet as possible. So not always dropping off the back line. But other than that, more or less the same. Okay guys, so a few signings that you could look to make for this team to try and elevate the system with the likes of Thiago Motta. I have put down a few names, only from the Serie A, league. But these are a few players that I think could definitely elevate the current side. So I've gone for the likes of John Lukumi. I think he could be a very effective centre-back. Of course, he is left-footed, and that is something that Juventus currently don't have. Gatti is right-footed, Brahim is right-footed, Giallo is also right-footed. Of course, they have Alexandra, who could potentially fulfill that role, but he is also up there in age. And to be honest, Lukumi is a fantastic ball-playing centre-back that does a very good job at getting into the midfield, being able to, bang with the big boys in the more central areas of the park. So he could be fantastic for the side. Scalvini is a right-footed Italian youngster. Could also fulfill that Bremer role very effectively. Another player that is also left-footed that I think could also work out very well in the inverted centre-back role is the likes of Pirola. Again, he does have a few good play styles, the jockey approach, so he does have a bit of pace to his game. And that is essentially what you would want and require for that centre-back that does get into the midfield, of course. And then we have one final man that I really like, Xhaka Biol. He's got some really good play styles. He's got the long ball pass, which is essentially what you would want. A ball-playing centre-back that is very calm under pressure, can ping that ball in behind looking for the runners. He's also got block and aerial. He is massive, 6'3". Towers in with all the headers for corners and stuff. And like I say, he's one of my favorite centre-backs to sign in FC24. Moving on into the midfield, I've selected Wallace, again, also from the likes of Udinese. He's slightly older, 28, but he can definitely fulfill the Locatelli type role. And he is also a nice, cheaper option. Coop Miners, I've selected him, as well as Samardzic. God damn it. I think both of them could effectively replace Rabiot. Of course, there are rumors that Rabiot might be set to leave. He is in the final year of his deal. I don't know if he's agreed an extension just yet. But these two players, essentially, maybe even three if you include Lovric, they can all, potentially fulfill and replace that type of player. That box-to-box player that can also drop a bit deeper, help support, or potentially be an extra 10 when required. So again, Coop Miners, Samardzic, as well as Lovric are all very good, adequate players. I mean, maybe Lovric is more suited to the Locatelli type role, but I do think he can also, express himself on the offensive end very effectively. And then finally, a player that I would look to replace Vlahovic with is the likes of Ademola Lookman. I think he is fantastic. He's not the tallest of players. He can, drop in between the lines. He can link up play very effectively. He's got all the tools that Motta wants from the likes of Xerxes. So I think he could be a very good replacement if you do look to replace the likes of Vlahovic. Of course, nothing is confirmed. Nothing is, settled. But I think that's more naturally if Motta does move into the likes of the Juventus job. I do see Vlahovic kind of finding himself on the outside looking in. And Lookman could be a fantastic signing for you guys to potentially go ahead and make. And there you have it, my people. That is how I would implement the likes of Thiago Motta's style and system into the current Juventus side in FC24. As always, if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and of course, until the next time, I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.